Welcome back. The 2024 presidential election is officially official. Both President Biden and former President Trump have become the presumptive nominees for their party. They cleared the required delegate thresholds following last night's slate of primaries. That kicks off what will be one of the longest general elections in modern political history, with an electorate that isn't really that excited about a rematch. Today, our reporters are fanned out in some of the major 2024 battlegrounds as part of the NBC News The Decider series. It's focusing on the important people and places that will define this election. Brewster is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, where the president is set to speak at the top of the hour. Patterson is in Reno, Nevada, he's in a key county, Washoe. And Blayne Alexander is in Atlanta, Georgia for us. So Shaq, you're in Milwaukee, where the president is set to speak in the next hour. What are we planning to hear from the president, and how does that compare to what voters want to hear?
Hi there, Yamish. And let's just be clear, he's going to be talking about infrastructure. You might see it with the signs on stage behind me. We expect him to hit the stage in the next half hour or so, but he's going to be announcing about $3.3 billion in infrastructure investments across the country, including about $36 million here in Milwaukee alone, targeting black and brown neighborhoods. But there's also the politics that we're looking at as well. Now that President Biden has been officially named the presumptive Democratic nominee, he's clearly focused on voters, key voters in these key battleground states. And when you ask about what they find to be the most important, I want you to listen from them directly.
Be more positive, I guess, to the public. Make it so that we believe in him, that if he gets reelected, he'll do good things for America and for us.
Please do something about Palestine.
What do you want to see happen there?
That ceasefire happen.
Try to fix the country and the economy and all these wars that are going on, and build the wall like everybody is saying. It's not just Russ and me.
And that's the line the president is playing with here, because, yes, he's touting the fact that his legislation that he passed, the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, how it's going to impact these communities. But then when you hear from voters, those are long-term investments. Many of them are looking and thinking about the day-to-day and what that means for their wallet. So that's the gap that he's going to be working to bridge over the weeks and months to come as we get closer to Election Day, Yamish.
So interesting to hear voters say, just be positive and fix the country. Very simple. Now, Steve, I want to come to you. President Biden, he won Washoe County in 2020. How important is that county for both President Biden and President Trump, if they hope, or former President Trump, if they hope to win in 2024? What are you hearing?
It's extremely important. This is almost always a perpetual vital bellwether of the state. And you have a good mix of people who are both politically motivated and fiercely independent. So much so that I get the sense from a lot of people that they're almost proud of sort of not knowing what candidate to choose, because they don't feel necessarily energized by either of the candidates. And they know that they are such a prize that people will come to them, that they can wait and choose based on who is going to show the most support. So these campaigns know that they need to have a ground game in this county. And speaking to both of their campaigns, they know how vitally important this is. We spoke to the Washoe County GOP, who spoke about just gathering that sort of middle and harnessing it. And if you don't, the problems that you will have. Here's what Bruce Parks told me. He's the chair. Listen to this.
What's the effort from the GOP here to sway those voters who seem to be like really key and crucial to winning Nevada? How do you get those folks on board?
Common sense. You appeal to their common sense. There's a concerted effort on those people to reach those voters, to let them know, hey, look, we're on the same sheet of music. You might not call yourself a Republican, but you want smaller government, you want lower taxes, you want a better economy, you want a secure border. I mean, and the list goes on. We agree with all those things.
And it's funny to hear Parks there, because both sides seem to think that this massive independence, these, supporters who don't have any support through either candidate, have values that pertain to each side. Parks thinks that a lot of the independents are actually Republicans in disguise who values align with the GOP, and a lot of Democrats feel that they're expats from places like California who are bringing their values to a state like Nevada. We spoke to Biden for Nevada. We're hearing that there's going to be a huge ramp up here in Washoe County within the next couple of months. Both sides focusing right here. Yamiche.
Lots of great reporting. Now, Blayne, I want to come to you because, of course, you're in another prize, and that prize, of course, being Georgia. You wrote a great piece today that noted that President Biden and Democrats are bracing for a tough fight ahead of his breakthrough win in Georgia in 2020. How has the landscape changed for Democrats heading into 2024?
You know, Yamiche, Democrats that I've spoken to here in the state acknowledge that it took a special set of circumstances for Joe Biden to win Georgia 4 years ago. We were talking about the middle of a global pandemic, all of the protests and reckoning around racial injustice. That is certainly a big factor in driving a lot of the black voters, a lot of the young voters that we saw help sweep Biden to victory back in 2020. That's not the case this time around. And on top of that, we have Republicans here in the state now who are very determined to prove that Georgia is a red state and not a purple state. So when I spoke with one organizer, though, she said it's important to note that the numbers just show that wasn't a fluke. If you look at Georgia trends, it's becoming younger, it's becoming more diverse. It shows that that's the way that Georgia is trending. They say, though, it's just going to take a different approach this time around. You know, one person that I spoke with said this is not the election where voters are going to wake up and be enthusiastic necessarily. They acknowledge that people aren't necessarily excited about who's at the top of their ticket. So what they're going to do is focus less on the candidate and more so on what the power of voting can do for them to change their circumstances. So Democrats I spoke with say it's going to be harder than last time around, but they're optimistic. But so are Republicans. And a big reason for that, Yamiche, is this poll that I'm about to show you right now. This is what came out earlier this morning from CBS, and it shows a very tight race between Trump and Biden here. In fact, the former president, Trump, is leading Joe Biden by about 3 percentage points here in the state of Georgia. That's well within the poll's margin of error. And I got to remind you, we all know the number that Joe Biden won by back in 2020, 11,779 votes. That's not a very big number. And so Republicans say what they're doing is they're going to be eyeing those people, especially in the suburban counties like Gwinnett County and Cobb County, where they believe that they can change minds and try and flip them back over to Trump's side. But as one Democrat told me, he said the single greatest tool that they have in their arsenal in trying to unify and win this and keep the state blue is the fact that Donald Trump is on the ticket again. He says he believes that people will rally around that fact. Yamiche.
Well, when you bring up Donald Trump, there's, of course, the election interference case that I and so many others are watching very closely down in Georgia. How's that weighing on the campaign? What influence could that have when you think about voters turning out?
People are watching it. I spoke with one of the organizers and I said, do you think that that's going to help your cause in terms of trying to turn out voters? And she said, well, it's certainly not going to hurt. So, when you talk about the fact that people are certainly watching every twist and turn of this case, the voters that I've spoken to have said maybe they don't know the ins and outs of it, but they are certainly paying attention. Now, the question is, which way will it go? Well, some people, as one Republican strategist I spoke with, she said that she believes that the impact it's having is it's almost making Donald Trump look like a victim. For those who may be more inclined to say, okay, these folks are beating down on him, they're unnecessarily charging him, that could drive out voters for him. But on the Democrat side, certainly there are a lot of people who want to see the former president held accountable and are proud to know that Georgia is taking a leading role as a battleground state and is going to be in the spotlight. And that's something that could help drive Democrat turnout. Yamiche.
Well, as our other guest said, that case has taken on a life of its own. So, Blayne, thank you so much. And thank you to Steve and Shaq as well. And thank you all for bringing us this important reporting and really talking to voters in some of the places we've highlighted as part of our NBC News Decider series.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.